And even the teaching of the need for an atonement, we all have positive feelings about Jesus, but it's actually, the atonement is actually an insidious doctrine.
When he said that, if you remember the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, bells are going off in your head. I see the atonement of Jesus Christ as one of the most beautiful doctrines that exists on planet Earth. Also, if you watch the 5 hours and 47 minutes, please keep a ticker on how many times Hayden used the word conceptualize.
You want a scenario where there isn't a justice for our actions. It's just everyone is saved independent of whatever mistakes they made.
However, that's only when you divorce the fact that what it did for us was allow us to overcome sin. And guess what? Jesus triumphed over all of that. On the third day, he rose from the grave. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to another edition of Jack Reacts. This time it is beard edition. I actually lost my razor for 3 days, and then I'm like, wait, my face actually grows hair? This is awesome. And so now we're 3 weeks in, and people have to ask me if I'm actually myself. It's funny, we went to a wedding in Montana a couple weeks ago, and I had 4 people come up to me and be like, I had to ask someone else if that was you because I couldn't recognize you. So turns out I actually am a man and have testosterone in my body. So cool to find that out. Today we're going to be talking about our Mormon Stories interview. Many of you may have seen that we went on John DeLyn's show, Mormon Stories, who, just to disclaimer, if you've never heard about Mormon Stories before, he is someone that has lost his faith in the restored gospel of Jesus Christ and is not someone that is pro the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the fact that I've tried to make this video several times now, I've come across the fact that since it's 6 hours long, there's no way that I can cover all that I want to cover in just one Jack Reacts. So I see us making several of these videos in the future, but the exchange in which I want to talk about today was one in which we had about the doctrine of the atonement of Jesus Christ. My goal in showing you these concerning ideas, these things that I find extremely troubling, is so that you can kind of see where people that are criticizing the church are coming from. I have no interest at all in attacking John DeLyn as a person. I actually came away from this interview with a completely different perspective on John DeLyn as a child of God. And I don't think that he's malicious in his intents. Obviously, we disagree heavily on a lot of main important ideas, and that's why we wanted to go on and ask questions to understand where he's coming from. But this video is in no way an effort to disparage or smear John DeLyn at all. Just want to talk about the ideas. So the exchange that we're going to be talking about today is in regards to a statement that he made a little bit ago, but it was one of my first exposures to the content that he produces, and that's his perspective on the atonement of Jesus Christ. Now, I see the atonement of Jesus Christ as one of the most beautiful doctrines that exists on planet Earth. The fact that I don't have to be defined by my past mistakes and errors, and that through Jesus Christ, I can become a new creature, and I can essentially be redeemed for the things that I do wrong. And it's a beautiful thing that I can be forgiven, and also I can have the capacity to forgive others. I personally think it's so beautiful, and that's just a little snippet of what the atonement of Jesus Christ encompasses. There's so much more to it, but it's very interesting to see the perspective that he has on it. And I called him out for a video that he did, and we're going to watch that snippet in which I was referring to. It's from a video that he did a couple years ago, and this is the and this is the comments that he made about the atonement of Jesus Christ. It's here on 2 hours, 25 minutes, and 32 seconds.
And even the teaching of the need for an atonement, we all have positive feelings about Jesus, but it's actually, the atonement is actually an insidious doctrine because it's all based on a deficit model of your brokenness and you needing someone to make you clean and to make you whole.
Right.
And that's complicated because we always think positive things about the idea of sin or of Jesus, but these teachings can actually be very insidious.
They can, yeah.
So if you're like me and have a completely 180-degree view on the atonement of Jesus Christ, then that might be very troubling for you to hear. And so I wanted to ask him about this. I wanted to get his takes on this, because if he's saying that the atonement of Jesus Christ, the idea of that being the way in which we return back to our Heavenly Father and overcome sin and death, right? Because that's the two things that the atonement of Jesus Christ overcame, was death, physical death, with the resurrection. All men will resurrect, and spiritual death, being separated from God, sin. And so I asked John DeLynn, I said, okay, you obviously think that there's a better way, seeing that you're saying that this is insidious in nature. And so then this is the exchange that follows.
I'm saying, John, you're sitting in the chair, you're criticizing the doctrine of the atonement of Jesus Christ.
Because you gave an idea.
Obviously, you're
I'll
saying
tell
it's
you.
not good, so you have a better
yeah,
solution.
I got a better solution.
Okay,
It's
God,
the way
John,
I deal.
tell us.
It's the way I deal with my children. When my children goof up, I don't go, oh, Winston, you screwed up. Let me punish Maya really bad because Maya's more good. Let me punish Maya really bad, and then you can pray to me through Maya and receive forgiveness for what you've done because Maya suffered for you. No, what I do is I say, hey, Winston, hey, listen, you just punched your sister in the face. How do you think that made her feel? You teach, you instruct, you make it a learning opportunity, you develop empathy with them, and then hopefully over time, they develop the desire and the conviction to not punch their sister anymore. So it's a learning opportunity. It's not a punish one to support the other, guilt and shame
I
paradigm.
think where he's getting to is the idea of justice and mercy, and
Justice
how
and mercy.
both have to be satisfied, and
Who
that
says?
somewhere is putting a rule on
God
the universe
says.
above
In
God.
Scripture.
No, that's it's not God says. There's no such thing as God says.
Okay.
There's what a bunch of dudes wrote, oftentimes generations after.
Just right there, I just want to stop where he's coming from a place that he gives zero value, divine value to the scriptures. So in John's model of the atonement, he sees it as there's no really justice and mercy. It's just all mercy whenever someone does something wrong. And he gives the example of a little kid doing something and not yet understanding. He doesn't really talk about what if someone understands that something's bad but does it anyway. But he basically explains it's a doctrine of learning, right? And then we're like, okay, so all mercy, no justice. So then Hayden does something really good where he kind of summarizes and checks understanding with John, and what he says is pretty interesting.
You want a scenario where there isn't a justice for our actions. It's just everyone is saved independent of whatever mistakes they may make.
Sure. That sounds better than punishing an innocent person.
When he said that, obviously, you know, if you remember the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and you've read The Pearl of Great Price before, bells are going off in your head. Oh, I've heard something similar to this before. And we tell John where this idea originated from.
I want to say before we get into that, what you just conceptualized is not the first time that's been conceptualized.
Of course.
Also, if you watch the 5 hours and 47 minute, please keep a ticker on how many times Hayden used the word conceptualize. And I'll smack him in the face for each time because it was like over 20.
When there's a very clear conceptualization of that in Moses chapter 1.
Horror,
not core horror. So Lucifer. So his and I'm not trying to
calling you Lucifer. It's just
but what I'm
similar
saying
idea, brother.
is from the very beginning, the argument was this: I want everyone to be saved, not a soul will be lost.
But wasn't the idea taking away Satan's idea was to take away people's freedom of choice?
Well, how do you take away people's freedom of choice? Is it by forcing them, or is it by getting rid of consequences?
Well, what I was taught when
So his reaction there was that of someone that essentially quoted Lucifer without realizing it. To go to where that is found in the book of Moses, we have here in Moses chapter 4, And the title heading is How Satan Became the Devil. He Tempts Eve, Adam and Eve Fall, and Death Enters into the World. So we learn here essentially about Satan's proposition of how things should work after the idea of the atonement is put forth. And it says here in verse 1, it says, "And he came before me, saying, Behold, here am I, send me. I will be thy son, and I will redeem all mankind, that one soul shall not be lost. And surely I will do it. Wherefore give me thine honor." And then in verse 3 it says, "Wherefore, because that Satan rebelled against me and sought to destroy the agency of man, which I, the Lord God, had given him, and also that I should give unto him mine own power, by the power of mine only begotten, I caused that he would be cast down." So we have here the idea being put forth that is not new in the slightest. No, this is not the fact that Lucifer is presenting this in the very beginning of time, saying, look, why do we have to have this idea of atonement and like justice and mercy and good and bad? Let's just make it so everyone is saved regardless of anything. And then God said, because you wanted to destroy the agency of man, you are cast down. And if you really think about it, how do you destroy the agency of man? Okay, so we have good and bad. We have the ability to choose between these two things. But if you just take away bad and all you have is good, then you really have no good. You just have one thing. There is no choice. Does that make sense? And so a lot of times this idea of taking away agency is putting your thumb on someone and forcing them to do good. However, as you kind of see how Satan works, there's an awesome verse in the book of Mormon that kind of expounds upon this idea, and it's in 2 Nephi chapter 2 verse 13. It says, "And if ye shall say there is no law, ye shall say there is no sin. And if ye shall say there is no sin, ye shall also say there is no righteousness. And if there be no righteousness, there be no happiness. And if there be no righteousness nor happiness, there be no punishment nor misery. And if these things are not, there is no God. And if there is no God, we are not, neither the earth, for there could have been no creation of things, neither to act nor to be acted upon, wherefore all things must have vanished away." Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I understand the whole grand scheme of eternity and why there are eternal laws. And, we read verses in the Book of Mormon, like if God does a certain thing, he will cease to be God, denoting that there are eternal laws that need to be abided by. However, it's just so interesting to me that these non-original ideas are still being put forth in 2024, that all mankind should just be saved. There should be no justice or consequence for actions, but everyone should just be saved. And we have no need for an atonement because that idea is insidious in nature. And going back to John's example of teaching a kid when, in this instance, Winston punches Maya. Yeah, that is how you do with a child. If they don't know what they're doing is wrong, then you teach them and hopefully they begin to understand what is right. However, what happens when Winston grows up and he continues to punch people, or he starts stealing things, or even, harm someone physically? Should there be no justice in that? Should we just keep explaining the same thing over and over and over, that it's not good to do that? At what point does justice get served for the incorrect actions of someone else? Because as much as we would like to believe that every human has the best intentions in the world, sometimes people do things wrong knowing that it's wrong. And so what the atonement of Jesus Christ does, it allows for both mercy and justice to be served. And if you have any questions about the relation between those, there's an amazing sermon, a little lesson given in Alma 42, where Alma is talking to one of his sons. And just to give you a teaser of what this lesson is about, he says, "And now, my son, I perceive that there is somewhat more which doth worry your mind, which ye cannot understand, which is concerning the justice of God in the punishment of the sinner. For ye do suppose that it is injustice that the sinner should be consigned to a state of misery. And so he goes in to what the relationship between justice and mercy is, and it's just an amazing lesson. So if you have questions about that, go and read Alma 42. It's amazing. Now, I can't fully recollect what it was like when Jesus said, "Here am I, send me." However, from everything that I can read in the scriptures, it doesn't seem like Heavenly Father forcing Jesus Christ to go through this. And one of the verses in which I don't see that type of attitude towards the atonement is in the New Testament in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2. Paul says, "Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God." Now, Hayden makes an analogy in this interview talking about how, things of a divine nature can be compared to childbirth, where if you look at the objective facts of it, it's pretty messy and bad and, doesn't sound like a great idea. And that's only if you ignore the divine product of it, a child being born into the world. Now, if you look at the objective facts of the atonement of Jesus Christ, totally separating the divine aspect from it, it sounds terrible. Having a son of God being tortured and bleeding from every pore, and then having nails driven through his hands and his feet and being put on a cross, like that's terrible. That's awful. However, that's only when you divorce the fact that what it did for us was allow us to overcome sin. And guess what? Jesus triumphed over all of that. On the third day, he rose from the grave. He rose from the tomb. He did not get conquered by these things that were inflicted upon him. He championed over him. The victory was won. Instead of focusing on the messiness of it and totally ignoring the things that it allowed for us to do and the fact that he won the victory over the cross by rising from the tomb, let us focus on the things that it has enabled us to do to overcome our mistakes and to be free from the things that we do wrong if we turn to Jesus Christ and put our faith and trust in him. And so in closing, I just want to end on some of the most beautiful words in the Book of Mormon in regards for the need for an atonement. In 2 Nephi chapter 2, it says, "But behold, all things have been done in the wisdom of him who knoweth all things. Adam fell that men might be, and men are that they might have joy. And the Messiah cometh in the fullness of time, that he may redeem the children of men from the fall. And because that they are redeemed from the fall, they have become free forever, knowing good from evil, to act for themselves and not to be acted upon, save it be by the punishment of the law at the great and last day, according to the commandments which God hath given. Wherefore men are free according to the flesh, and all things are given them which are expedient unto man. And they are free to choose liberty and eternal life through the great mediator of all men, or to choose captivity and death according to the captivity and power of the devil. For he seeketh that all men might be miserable like unto himself." And I thank God every single day for sending his only begotten Son, that we might overcome our sin and mistakes to one day enter back into his presence. And I hope that you can see the beauty in that as well. Until next time, stay curious and hungry.